So this is my newest toy, my Xiegu, I think is how it's pronounced, G90. I've got a ICOM 7410 that used to sit here. It's actually been moved to my room that's eventually going to be my hem shack. This is my kind of temporary setup. I'm in a little camper that I've got. It's a little 13-foot scant. You can see it here. That's what it looks like on the outside. Little egg, basically. And what I've done is down here, you can't really see it, I've got a mount, like a receiver hitch, essentially, that I've welded to the frame with a little mount that this pole, this is a Harbor Freight flagpole that I got on sale. This flagpole it telescopes. I think it's either 20 or 25 feet. And that is my antenna. So I've taken the flagpole and took a piece of stock, turned it down to where it slides right down into the top. That's a piece of pipe. Originally what this was going to be is I was going to have a fiberglass rod that went out this way, and then went up that way. And you can see those laying right here. There's a bunch of fiberglass rods. Turned out that they were really, really, really heavy, and they had a tendency to bend over. I got them up there, but the idea was that it was going to be a freestanding setup, so I didn't have to come off and tie anywhere. The way it's set up now, I'm having to tie to trees. So I've got the wire going out, and this is just a simple wire antenna. And you can see this is just a piece of PVC with a cap on it. That's a piece of ABS that I laser cut with my diode laser. And I've got holes that are going through here. I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different holes with stainless steel bolts running through them. These wires have a crimped on, soldered on lug that attaches them with that 1/4-20 bolt, and then there's a strip of copper that goes down through there that I've got the same hole pattern drilled into, and down through here. And then this right here is just one of those BNC binding posts with 2 wires that come up to there and there, and it goes down a little ways. You really can't see it, but there's a loop. I think I've got 7 loops with I think a zip tie, and then that drops down just basically going through the door here, and that's where this wire goes. This is some Amazon RG58 cable that I just crimped some BNC connectors on, and on all of my radios so far I'm just putting a little adapter like that. It's got a little BNC to PL259 adapter. And right now this is my hem shack. So I originally started out with as far as HF, I bought those to begin with, those little 2-meter deals. But pretty quickly I ended up buying I also bought these. So that's a little, basically it's just a bow thing but in a mobile thing. That's an Anytone that I have yet to figure out how to do anything with. These are really simple. You can program them with chirp. To be honest with you, I really like these little radios for what they are. I've got one of these mounted in my truck with a little 2-meter, 70-centimeter antenna. Originally, I was going to put that one in there. It actually is supposed to do APRS, among other things, and DMR. And apparently, that's what's making it so complicated. I don't know. I've got to fiddle with it, but I kind of gave up on it for a little while once I got into HF. So I bought this little power supply here, and this thing is awesome. I don't remember how many amps. I think it'll do 30 amps. And it's just a little 12 volts, got 2 lugs in the back. I've ordered another one of these that instead of having this little cigarette lighter plug here, it's got some of those power pole. I think it's got 2 different lug sets here that I can just plug directly into. I've also ordered some of those power poles and some other stuff like that. But yeah, this is my little ham shack so far. I've got this. I had bought the ICOM, used it for a while. Fantastic radio. Can't say anything bad about it. Just a great little radio. And then I bought this one. It's a FT 891. Was looking for something that I can make mobile. The idea was, this is my little table. This is still going to be something I want to set up with. My entry into ham radio was really more of a disaster recovery route. Something that I looked at and it was like, man, I want to be able to go help people, but I need to be able to communicate if there are no cell phones. And so I got into ham radio, started with those, got my licenses. Let's see, I got my technician, and about a week later I got the extra. So I went through all three of them in about a week. And then I just started buying stuff. Probably not the best thing to do, but I've got some ham sticks over here. There's the case that came with my G90. There's the Xiegu box. The only thing that's really not in here, I've got a whole bunch of those little Baofeng radios that I started playing with. I got probably 20 of those in the last little bit. But the problem was that one radio, the ICOM, took up this whole thing. It's a much larger radio, and I wanted to be able to bring this camper with me wherever I went. Basically, throw a four-wheeler in the back of the truck and hook up to this four-wheeler and go somewhere. Even if I'm just camping, I want to be able to use this as a ham shack to some degree. So this is going to be kind of my ham shack number 2 eventually. Right now it's the only one I've got. I did take the ICOM and put it inside, which is why it's not in here. Plus it just took up so much room. And I'm going to convert one of my rooms in the house to a ham shack inside. But for right now, that was the easiest way that I could get myself an antenna up. And that's actually 10 gauge wire, is what that wire is right there. I just had 2 big spools of 10 gauge wire. So I use those. I'm kind of curious if that makes any difference or not, because I've been getting really good results so far. I bought this one. That was the second high frequency radio I bought, and it was right at $800. And the idea was, this is a 100-watt radio. It's a Xiegu. I've seen nothing but good things about Xiegus. I have plugged it in and run it in here. I do like the ICOM better so far, but I'm not really giving this much of a chance. I do like the fact that this faceplate can come off and I can remote mount the head unit. But eventually, I'm probably going to end up selling this one. I would rather, instead of buying one of these, I wish I would have bought 2 of these. And I actually ended up doing that. So I've got this one, and I've got one more on the way. They had a Black Friday sale for like 300 and something bucks for this and the little stand. I ended up buying this one, bought this separately. It came with that box over there. Came with the stand that this laptop is on, which, to be honest with you, I bought 2 of these, and I use them for my laptop now. I actually really like the way that sets your laptop up. But so far, I really like this machine. I've actually enjoyed this more than the ICOM. Now, saying that, the filters on the ICOM, I can get noise down to a much more manageable level with the ICOM. It does have 100 watts as well as this one output, and this will do 20 watts as it stands. But I've actually bought the 100 watt amplifier for it as well, so I've got that as well. Now this one, I don't know if you'd say it's a better radio. It probably is, but for half the price, granted this one only does 20 watts, but I have talked, I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina. I've talked all the way up to Quebec, Canada. I've talked into Mexico. I've used this in, let's see, Louisiana, Arkansas, Georgia, Tennessee, Virginia, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Connecticut, you know, all with 20 watts. And everybody that I've talked to, if I can hear them, I can generally talk to them, is what I've found. And I've talked to people with 1,500 watts behind them, and they can't believe how good this little radio sounds. So that is just really nice. The faceplate on this will also remote mount, just FYI. So you can actually mount this one. My second one that I've got coming in, I may actually mount in my truck. Not sure. The idea behind the second one is I want to be able to test something where I'm essentially building a loadout of equipment that people can use. I've got friends and family that I'd like to be able to contact in any kind of disaster scenario. So the idea is I want to find a radio, and it's looking more and more like this one, not this one. For one, it is far cheaper. So it's half the price, sometimes less than that, of this radio. By the time you pay taxes and everything else, this one worked out to be a little bit less, or right at half. This has a built-in antenna tuner. This one does not have an antenna. You have to use a resonant antenna with this one. Now, I've got a resonant antenna that I've been using it with, so you know it's either, I don't know, but I've been told that this thing will tune a fence post. It's one of the super nice tuners. Everybody's very impressed with it. I do think it affects your efficiency, so your 20 watts may not get you quite as far as you wanted to go. This one also has the waterfall display here, so I can see where stations are. So you can see over here, it's a little bit. Oh, there we go. So you can see the waterfall. It's kind of hard, but you can see these things online somewhere. I really like the waterfall display. The controls so far have been pretty self-explanatory for the most part. There's some long presses here, a function key here that you can turn on and off. It does have a tuner, I think, if you do that. Yeah, or not a tuner, but it's got a, what do you call that thing? A Morse code decoder. So far, I've not really been able to make that work. One thing I did like about this is I bought my little Morse code keyer here on Amazon, and I really like this one. I like the size of it. It's made well, but my ICOM has a different plug. It's got the bigger headphone jack. This one's got a standard one that this one actually works with out of the box. It also has a way that you can actually test, so I can practice Morse code with this without transmitting. So I can sit there and fiddle with it and learn Morse code without actually transmitting and hear what it does on this radio. Again, my ICOM does filter the noise out a little bit better. I don't have to hear as much static with the ICOM, but man, for what this one is, I've been really happy with it. I wish I could sell this and buy one or two more of these. I like it that much. So I'll probably keep this. There is a antenna system that you can buy for this. It's like another $400. So I'd end up with over $1,000 in the radio and antenna, but it's made to be mobile mounted. So you can put it, I might mount this in my truck along with, right now I've got one of these mounted. But if I could mount this in my truck with that antenna system, then I would have it automatically tunes and everything, the antenna. I've also got these ham sticks over here. That's one of the things I'm going to try at some point. I'm going to give that a shot. But I've got to make a mount for them. Let's see, what else? So this is my little ham shack. Right now I've got this little door set up to where if I open it here, I'm gonna make this like a reference wall. I thought about putting even like a little dry erase board, so if I needed to make a quick note, I could just jot it down right here. It'd be really easy, and then when I'm done, I just close it. It's out of my way. This thing, somebody had jerked the heater out of it, so I bought one of those little diesel heaters from Amazon and retrofitted it with there's a diesel tank outside mounted out there, and that gives me my heat. It actually does a really good job heating the thing up. I am going to make some mounts. My idea, so here's, if it'll ever open. This is a little antenna mount that I'm essentially going to try to build. But basically, so there's the top with a hole in it. You'd have a 10-meter ham stick that would go up through there. And then that would be vertical. And then you've got a dipole, your 40-meter dipole, you'd have one side of it here, one side of it comes out here. You can see that this hole is actually bigger than that hole. They have a 3/8 24 way to attach them, essentially, and I 3D printed some little spacers. So these spacers will essentially hug that hole, and it'll keep my connection from, so essentially I'll have to run a wire from here down to the connector that's down here. Right now I have two holes down here, and I'm not sure if I want to do different coax connectors, so I have one here, one here. This is going to be your mount, so that's a 1/2 inch hole for basically a 1/2 inch bolt that's going to mount it to the top of a mast. And then these two holes on the side are for these. So this is a BNC connector, and for everything I do in this thing here, I'm going to do everything in BNC. It just makes sense. It's quick disconnect. Right now, when I get done and I leave my little shack, I just go back here and just pop this antenna off, and that way I don't have to worry about any kind of lightning strikes or anything like that coming in and burning up my radio. But essentially, your center pin is your, I guess your positive, I don't know, but your center pin is going to go to these two holes here. So that one, you're going to have these spacers at both of those places. So both of these little spacers here will isolate this and this, which will be your two center pin connectors, and then this one is grounded. And essentially I can either ground the box, and that will make my connection for this connector over here, and then obviously I'll have a plate, a cover plate that covers this as well. But essentially what I'm going to do is, this is going to be something I just laser cut at work, and I've just got it set up where I can essentially bend it by hand, and then I'm going to weld it together so I don't have to use the press brake, and easy as pie. So just pull it together, weld it up, very simple. And then this box will essentially connect to the top of my flagpole or whatever it is I'm doing. Probably my truck, if I don't use this radio with that ATAS, I think ATAS system, then this will mount, and essentially this would be pointing towards the back of the truck. This would be pointing towards the front of the truck, and it would be just behind the cab, essentially. So your two antennas are going to go forward and back of the cab, mounted, 2 to 3 to 5 feet up, or maybe even have some kind of a telescoping thing where I could get out and telescope it if I want to. The idea with this is I'm going to try this vehicle mounted paired up with one of these, and one of these I'm going to set up like a web SDR to where I can monitor it remotely over the internet. I will do that with one of these. I'll also do it with the ICOM. I've got a friend of mine that he's actually getting his ham license in the next little bit, hopefully. And when he does, then I'm going to loan one of these out to him, and we're going to do some tests. So I think it's really neat that you can talk to people really far away. I've met some really interesting people on this thing, and I really enjoy that aspect of it as a hobby. But for me, I'm more of a practicality type person. What I'm looking for is communications that are reliable in a situation where cell phones are down. What comes to mind is the thing in Western North Carolina that just happened, where people still don't have great service. They still don't have a way to communicate out. They are still in kind of a pickle. So I want to not only be able to communicate out for myself, but my friends. So what I'm trying to do is essentially, you would have a box probably a little bigger than that I'm trying to put together a list for. And that box, so here's my little thing right now that I'm just kind of putting together a list of different things that you're going to put in. And then I'm actually using ChatGPT to help me write I think it's called a pace plan. But essentially, you'd have a laminated card inside of each one of those. You'd have one of these. You'd have a wire dipole with instructions on how to get it put up and set up, and it would be set up in an invis configuration, so not far off the ground, actually fairly easy to put together. And on 40 and 80 meters, invis works really well day and night. So 80 at night, 40 during the day, from what I understand. But the idea is that if something does happen, you can quickly put something like that up, and at say 7 a.m. we meet at this frequency and here are 2 fallbacks. At 10 a.m. we meet at this frequency and here are 2 fallbacks. At 12 p.m. here's this frequency, here are 2 fallbacks. And so the idea is someone that's not me, that isn't as interested in experimentation and playing with it and stuff like that, if needed, they've got a box that they can throw in their truck and roll, use the car battery in their car to power this if they need to, have all of the wiring and everything set up to where basically you could pull over on the side of the road, take this out of the thing, have alligator clamps or something that will connect to your car battery, that will power this radio. Very quick and dirty wire antenna that I can just make more of the ones that I've already got. Really simple. Where'd it go? This one. So this mount right here, it would be very easy to reproduce, make several of them. And so far, this one has worked really well. The idea between the multiple lugs was I wanted to make a fan dipole. So I wanted, 80 meters, 40 meters, 20 meters, 10 meters, and 6 meters or something like that. What I'm probably going to end up doing is at some point I'm going to pull this back down and I'm going to go to that last lug down there and see if I can add maybe a 10 meter or a 20 meter dipole to it. I'm not sure if I will. I think what I'm actually going to do is this wire here, I'm actually going to make it a linked dipole. So I can also use it as a 80 meter just by adding 16 feet of wire essentially to it. That would give me my 80 and 40. I would just have to switch them over manually. And then make some spacers that come off of here that essentially will support a lower wire for the other frequencies that I might use. So that would be my 40 primarily, and it works really, really well for 40. I've heard nothing but good things about it so far, especially for something that simple. I just bought those little binding posts. I got a pack of them, so I've got multiples of those. Those are 1/4 nuts and bolts. Just a really simple piece of kit that you can put together pretty easily. I've got all the stuff to build all this stuff. Now what I would probably do is not use 10 meter or 10 gauge wire for anybody else's. I've already cut this one, so I'm going to keep it as is. I'm going to cut me, I think, 16 more feet of wire for my 80 meter antenna, and hopefully that'll work out pretty good. The The other one that I might do would be a 10 and a 6 meter. So that gives me, hey Bit, how you doing? So that would give me 10 meter, 6 meter, and 40 meters, and would give me the ability to get out pretty easily. That's all of your local comms. And I think what I'm going to do is make a little reel where this wire will reel up onto it somehow. I'm not sure what yet, but anyway, that's what I've got so far. I'm going to cut it short and go spend some time with my daughter, but there's my ham shack. Y'all have a good day.